Jaggard, it's our joy to be talking to you. Ted and I have been really enjoying exploring the corporate world and how we can improve the corporate world through our own self-improvement. And we've written a recent book. Let's see. Ted, do you want to share the screen?
Yeah, I'll do that right now. Thanks, Dad.
And then Ted, you can start off here with the first slides and then I'll pick up.
Okay. Thanks, Dad, so much. It's a great honor to be with my father and a chance to hear him speak. We've written this book, Self-Empower. There's a couple, Pat Reed is sort of a top coach in the world. And there's also Richard Sheridan, who's the kind of CEO of Menlo Innovations and written Chief Joy Officer. So they've had a chance to kind of read it, and there's a lot of good positive comments on it. It's very helpful. So the kind of key point behind Self-Empower is for us to be empowered, we have to have the receptivity, which you all are showing in this space of coming to this course, of listening to Maharishi, to Lane, such beautiful knowledge, having strong intentions. That's kind of the very important kind of that intention level. And then having the inspiration. And the inspiration is the thing that generates energy. And energy is the thing that allows you to change your inner environment and your outer environment. And as you change that, you gain greater receptivity. So it's a cycle. So we call it the empowerment cycle. And it's sort of the thing which encompasses all the different tools that we talk about in Self-Empower. Dad, do you want to talk about the outer tree, the one tree?
Sure. Maharishi was always talking about watering the roots to enjoy the fruits. And so we framed the looking at an individual in terms of three parts: the outer self, what we call the neuro self. The outer self are the leaves and fruits of the tree. Neuro self is the trunk and main branches, and the essential self, which is the roots of the tree. And we use this image, again, in honor of Maharishi, to really put the emphasis on, if you want to make any changes in habits, in behavior, in the outer self, you really have to do it by watering the roots of the tree, getting to our essential self, expanding the conscious mind. And when you do that, then you enliven the nervous system, rewire the nervous system, and then this allows you to have better behavior, more energy, more creativity in the outer areas of life. Go ahead, Ted.
Great, thanks, Ted. And we use these type of tools, like when I'm in at Principal Financial, so in these Fortune 250 companies, we have them figure out what is their intention of how they want to change. I help companies usually shift their mindset, and usually it's around programming type of things. Going from waterfall to Agile is one area, going to the cloud is another area, changing data, kind of changing doing what we call transformations. And so we want the individuals, the teams, and the organization to be very clear. So we use a value tool, and this is something that really clarifies intention. And we look at what their values are in terms of vision, vulnerability, awareness, adaptability, listening and learning, understanding, unifying, experiment, and evolving. So within that empowerment framework, there's these different tools that we use. We also have the Dharmic tools. This is from Total Brain Coaching. This was a book we wrote about a year ago. So, and Self-Empower really came out of Total Brain Coaching. And the Dharmic tools, will go a little more depth in them. First is to discover your energy state. Second is habit, harnessing neuroplasticity and gut-brain axis. Third, attention. Fourth, rhythm. Fifth, maintain balance. 4, coaching practices. 6 is improve and integrate, and C is celebration. And the real depth and basis of this, as you'll see, is we'll talk about in the H, super habits, and Transcendental Meditation, which is the basis, and also Ayurveda, which has all these amazing small habit changes, which allow you to balance the doshas, and that allows you to change at a much faster rate. Do you want to talk about our greatest superpower, Dad, or?
Sure. Ultimately, the brain is very, very flexible. And a word called neuroplasticity is used to describe this flexibility. What it really means is the brain can change at any point in our lives. When we're very young, there are millions of connections being made literally every minute. And as we grow older, this flexibility is still there. So every experience you have can change your brain. And that's the real superpower of our brain, that it can have any experience and that can cause it to rewire itself, sometimes on a molecular level, sometimes on a synaptic level, sometimes neural networks. But ultimately, the whole growth of higher states of consciousness, the concept of enlightenment as described in the Bhagavad Gita and all the Vedic literature, what Maharishi did, which was so unique, was to describe this growth of consciousness in terms of neurophysiological refinement. And so this is a very profound way of understanding how we can improve our life by rewiring our brain. Go ahead, Ted.
Thanks, Dad. And what Self-Empower deals with is, in total brain coaching, a lot are habits. So a lot of times we're trying to change our habits. And of course, TM is this super habit that we'll talk about, which allows us to change many, many habits in the positive direction. But the whole point of Self-Empower is that you are the person that has that superpower to change your own physiology and to move yourself in the direction you want to. And so we look at habits as neural circuits. So when I want to have a glass of water, I'll have it here. When I think about it, something happens in the frontal cortex, then I reach for the glass of water, there's a whole pathway in the brain that gets enlivened. So it's a neural circuit. And a lot of times we look at it, this is an analogy we use, when we want to change our habits, it's actually pretty hard to just dismantle a habit. What's the best strategy is to start a new habit that replaces the old habit. And in this picture, we have sort of the analogy, the habit that we have is the main highway, and the new habit is this little side road. And the sort of trick to changing a habit is to direct the traffic from the main highway to the side road. So that side road becomes the main highway, and the highway becomes a little road. And that's kind of an analogy of how we do. So if we wanted to change, say, we didn't eat something, or we ate always at 3 in the afternoon, we had some energy dip, and we had to leave our desk and we went to get something sweet. And after a while, we decided we didn't just want to eat that sweet thing. We wanted, for whatever health reason, we wanted to change it to something healthy. We would direct the energy, we'd get our friends, we'd have lots of different ways of taking that small road on the side, making it the highway, and taking the highway and making it a small road. And we'll go into dharmic, which is yes, please.
So this is, we use this word dharmic as an acronym, and it helps us understand each of the steps in habit change. Previously, Dr. Fred Travis and myself wrote a book called Dharma Parenting, and we use something similar there with a similar acronym. But the D stands for discover your energy state. And if we look at the next slide, we utilize as an energy state, we utilize the Ayurveda concept of the dosha combination. And there's a whole new area of science that's called Ayurgenomics, which is this integration of Ayurveda and genomics, modern DNA analysis. So we now know that Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, these expressions have a basis in our DNA in terms of the Prakriti, which is the kind of ultimate DNA we're born with, but then our Vikriti, which has to do with which genes are expressed at any given time. And this is an analysis that was done trying to understand how the different aspects of our physiology, what we call our phenotype, are related to our to the doshas that we express. So we have a very simple test. You can see it on Total Brain Coaching on that website. And this simple test allows you to analyze your energy state, which essentially means your combination of your doshas. And we have VPK just to make it simpler for people to understand. We know, of course, that to really get a deep analysis of a person's Prakriti or Vikriti, it's best to have a Vaidya actually measure it. But we're looking for a simple, easy way where individuals, teams, and even companies can look at the composition of what they express, Vata, Pitta, or Kapha, which are totally valuable areas of knowledge if you want to change your habit. A Vata is very quick, often changes things from one to another. Pitta, very determined, very goal-oriented. We know that most habit change books are written by Pitta for Pitta people. And then Kaphas are slower, take a little longer. They need a little help to make change. So we go into this very deeply in our first dharmic tool.
Beautiful. And just recently I was with a company, and I was with their kind of CEO and the right-hand person. And we're trying to make a change in their company to adopt some more agile type of practice. And they're first doing this among themselves, and then they're taking it to the directors, and then the directors will take it to everyone else. But this VPK, I just sort of lightly talked about it with them. And then they started immediately, oh yeah, this person has that V energy type, this is the P. And so they use that information to help bring it even on the director level to make the habit changes that they wanted, to have some more insights and to be able to speed that process along. So very, very powerful. The next is habit, harnessing our neuroplasticity and our gut-brain axis. And we talked about this whole principle of, rather than getting rid of habits, figuring out the new habits we want. Oh, good. Figuring out the new habits we want, and then replacing those old habits. So that is a lot of the neuroplasticity. We have these super habits, and learning is a super habit. So having a growth mindset is very powerful. Meditation, of course, is one of the most powerful habits, and it's well recognized in the US where I'm working. So it's very, that people understand, and I've helped different companies work with that. Love and gratitude are also amazing habits. A lot of the top habit authors talk about having a gratitude type of habit in the morning to start the day off right. Dad, this is your area. Yeah. You are the first scientist of this area.
So you all heard directly from Maharishi the value of transcendental meditation, and we know all this enormous research that's been done on it, which shows its value. Research from cardiovascular research, $25 million worth of studies from the National Institutes of Health, research on PTSD. Everything you can imagine has been studied and shown to be improved by the practice of transcendental meditation. So this is a very powerful super habit. And of course, people that have various addictions have been shown to be able to essentially stop some of these difficult addictions as a result of almost a side effect of starting transcendental meditation and having the many benefits. In one simple study looking at the cardiovascular, they took people with heart attacks and divided them in two groups, one group that practiced TM, one that did health education. And the TM group had a 48% reduction of risk for future heart attacks, strokes, and deaths. This would be $1 billion pill if it was in the pharmacy world. So this is a very, very powerful technique. We are very grateful to India for having brought Maharishi to us and having given us this extremely powerful technique, which really, really rewires the brain and the whole physiology. Now, Ayurveda, next slide, also recognizes the importance of diet. And again, we are very grateful to you all for bringing us Ayurveda, particularly Maharishi Ayurveda, which understands the gut-brain axis, which is this connection between the nervous system, endocrine, immune system, enteric, that means the nervous system around the gut, enteric endocrine, that is the endocrine system around the gut, and most importantly, the gut bacteria or microbiome. We now know that every disease, every state of mind is affected by this system. And what this does is it validates Ayurveda very powerfully, because what changes the gut bacteria or the microbiome is essentially your diet. So we now understand why Ayurveda placed a huge emphasis on diet, on all the herbs and spices, lifestyle changes, and why these are very valuable. And we know that stress is the thing that can disrupt the system the most. And of course, Transcendental Meditation is such a powerful tool to reduce stress. And then when you add to Transcendental Meditation, Maharishi Ayurveda, which is this wonderful system of enabling you to have proper lifestyle and diet, then that enlivens this whole gut-brain axis. We have the brain in the top of the head, we have the brain in the heart, and we have the brain in the gut. And all these need to be integrated to operate properly.
Beautiful, beautiful. And part of that step in the Dharmic scheme is we help individuals, teams, or organization create a habit map and a habit plan, so that as they build these positive habits, they use that energy we talked about in that empowerment cycle to then build more and more positive, to create this positive upward trend in terms of their own habits and their results. The next is the power of attention. What you put your attention on grows. So when people are learning habits or teams are learning habits, we have them be very focused, not a lot of distractions. We also have finding your inner rhythm. So this is using VPK and understanding some people have this morning, a little bit, some people tendencies in the evenings, understanding why it's so important for a P-type or a Pitta to eat on time. So these things, they seem very simple, but when people do them, then days become much more productive. Companies become more productive. Companies are only made of people, and people have these habits, and moving the habits in the right direction creates a lot of productivity. And we also have maintaining balance, the 4 coaching practices. So when we are asking people to move their habits in the direction they want, to express the essential self to the outer self, we have 4 different techniques. Self-coaching, so you could be journaling or writing, having a personal coach. So in a business setting that works, in a family setting that can also work. It can be a partner, can be a spouse. Group coaching, so if you want to take on a new habit, working with a group is a very powerful way of moving in that direction. And one of the most important is environmental coaching, making sure the environment supports your change that you want to make. So in this agile way of computer, we get all the developers and they were in these individual areas, and now we ask them to come together so there can be very good communication between them. So that's an example of maybe environmental coaching. We also use continuous improvement and integration. So this is, we have a goal, we keep referring to it, and we keep figuring out where we are and where's the next direction we have to go. So it's not a static process, it's a very dynamic process of achieving the outcomes rather than the outputs that we want. And finally, celebrate. Dad, do you want to take us home?
This is something Maharishi loved very much. We'd always have celebrations. And, you know, the Vedic tradition is full of beautiful celebrations, celebrating life, celebrating success. For habit change, it's very important. If you've suddenly begun to practice your TM twice a day, and that's become a very strong habit, then it's good to celebrate it each day, and then maybe have some bigger celebrations each month. So you encourage yourself with each habit. And then when you're doing your yoga asanas regularly, that's another great habit. And then you add various Ayurveda habits. Again, each time you add, you celebrate both on an individual basis each day, and then also over a longer period of time. It's a very powerful tool. And we know that research in companies has shown that when you create positivity, it's a much more powerful technique than creating fear and negativity for productivity.
Beautiful. And so, just as Dad was saying, we've seen in companies, we've seen on individual levels, I've seen on team levels and in company mindsets, that when we focus on changing, making small changes in positive directions in terms of habits and behaviors, those can lead to creating more energy. And that energy then can be reinvested back into more positive habits, more things in the right direction. And that can create a positive flow of energy and of productivity and of results. So that's why we talk about on this very kind of almost simple level of habits, but it turns out habits is it's not that easy to change habits or behaviors. It takes quite some energies. So that's why we devoted this time and energy to creating processes and books and tools to help people be able to change it quicker. And really the work that I do as an Agile coach or as a DevOps coach or as a cloud coach is all about getting people to change their habits and behaviors. So it's a great tool. In business, we always want to, businesses want to change their mindset. They want to become more of the future. They want to be in the cloud. They want to use Agile. They want to do these things, but they have to do it on an individual level. And then that influences the team level, and that influences the company level. And that's where the results come from. Dad, do you want to add?
Well, just, if anybody has any questions, we're very happy to answer them. Our primary goal here is really helping people make changes in their life. And we understand from, all of that Maharishi taught us and told us that the most fundamental technique we can use is Transcendental Meditation, but also Ayurveda is a wonderful and powerful tool. And it basically involves habit change. So we tried to make it very systematic, very easy to understand, and something that businesses can incorporate in an easy fashion.
Thank you for this beautiful opportunity for allowing me to listen and speak with my dad. I deeply appreciate it. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity.